Welcome to the second lesson on occlusion for the dental team, and specifically in this course we're talking about the periodontium and the dentition. Let's spend a few minutes talking about periodontal health. What is it? And although we talk about it on a regular basis, we don't often relate it to occlusion. But when you think about it, it makes sense. A healthy periodontium is usually when we have pockets of 1 to 3 millimeters that don't bleed when we probe and that have good bony support around them. So we would love it if we didn't have any of that inflammation, so we'd had healthy gums. We would love it if we had good bones surrounding those teeth. And we would love it if the bone in and of itself was healthy, so good bone architecture. And we would love it if the load being placed on this foundation, this periodontium, is a load that is sustainable by the foundation, if you will, right? And so luckily, human nature has done a great job preparing us for this. When you look at how much root surface we have on our teeth on the graph, you can see that nature has given us a lot of root surface area on our molars and our cuspids, right? And so thank goodness, because we want a lot of our pressure, our forces when we bite together, it's going to be on the molars. And nature said, great, let's give you a bunch of roots there. And in fact, we know that the bone on the maxilla in the back is a little more porous, so let's give you 3 roots there. We're going to help you out. And let's make these cuspids, because they're going to probably be guiding us a little bit, let's make the cuspids have a little longer root. So nature's done a great job preparing us for occlusion, right, for how our teeth are going to function. But what happens when we don't have enough bone there? We have to talk about crown to root ratio, right? Ideally, we'd like it to be 3 to 2. If it gets down to 1 to 1, so half of the tooth is in bone and half of it is out of bone, that can really have an impact on occlusion, or the occlusion can really have an impact on that. So you can see that the bony support and the root structure are very important. Now, even though we have 3 roots, let's say on the molars, if all of a sudden we start to lose some of that bone, now we are asking that tooth, we're asking it to sustain a load that wasn't originally intended to sustain. And so when you look at this photo right here, you can really start to imagine that if we're losing teeth, or if we've lost some teeth, we're asking the teeth on either side to sustain a load that they also were not intended to sustain. You're asking the molar to take on the load of maybe another tooth, or maybe even 2 teeth. And so when we bite together and we give that one tooth more load, all of a sudden the periodontium comes into play. If we have infection around there, or poor crown to root ratio, or poor bone, it can really have an impact on the occlusion, and again, or the occlusion can have a pretty profound impact on it. So I like to have a conversation sort of like the chicken and the egg, which came first. You know, if a tooth was in hyper-eruption, or it hyper-erupted, or it was just in malocclusion, and so the tooth below it started to touch it off of the long axis, or touching it a little bit harder than the rest of the teeth, think about what that does to the periodontium. Or conversely, let's think about if the teeth just already aren't touching very well, so the load is directed off of the long axis and it creates some inflammation in the area, that what effect does that have on periodontitis or healthy periodontium? So did a bad bite bring on inflammation that was deleterious to the periodontium? Or is there a possibility that a poor periodontium that didn't have a stable foundation started to change the occlusion? Either way, they're integrally related. And if nothing else, I hope that you can appreciate the correlation between the foundation, the periodontium, and occlusion. So I'll see you at the next lesson.